What's up, Glass Nation? After a little hiatus, I am back and I am excited to bring you in my next video. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? Listen, I got to tell you guys something. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for hanging in with me. If you've ever done YouTube or you follow YouTube channels, you guys know it is a grind. It's a grind mentally, emotionally, physically, because you want to make sure you're putting out the best content. You don't want to feel dull, as if you're rushing things or if you're not giving your best self to your videos. And after a while, it kind of felt that way with me until I got to give a shout out to Young Anime Doctor. He commented on one of my posts and with a suggestion. So this video is going to be a ranking list. Well, not really a ranking list, just a best of list, because all these movies are awesome, so there really is no ranking. So what I'm going to do is talk about 10 of my favorite horror movies. If you love this channel and you love my reviews and my content, these are movies you've got to see if you haven't already. If you have, I want to know in the comments what you thought about it, but let's get started. The first movie of my favorite list, a movie I can watch all day, every day, The Descent. If you have not seen The Descent, pause this video, go watch it, and come back when it's over. Look, The Descent is amazing. It's great in three different aspects. Number one, you had the characters and their drama. If they just had that movie, it would have still been enough to carry the movie along. Number two, when they get into the cave, the claustrophobia, the feeling of claustrophobia that you feel as soon as they're in there is palpable. It is strong. And there were some scenes I found myself like getting a little squeamish just from the claustrophobia, which, how awesome is that? How many movies have we seen that's actually been used effectively? And then the monsters in the cave, like on top of everything else going on, you have these humanoids in the cave trying to rip these women apart. It is one of the best horror movies of all time, I feel, because for reasons I just mentioned. And some of the shots and the first couple reveals of the monsters is incredibly creepy. If you guys can see this and you don't feel some type of way from it, like, I don't know what else to tell you. This movie is a must watch. If you have not seen The Descent, this is one of my personal favorites. The next one on my list, I'm going to Italy for this one. The Beyond by Lucio Fulci. I'm not sure if you say Fulci or Fulci. Not exactly sure how to pronounce it, so I apologize if I messed that up. But The Beyond. So, I'm a huge zombie fan, and I'm a huge George A. Romero fan. I personally feel Lucio Fulci is the granddaddy of zombies. If you look at not just The Beyond, but Zombie 2 and City of the Living Dead, the makeup on the zombies is the stuff of legend. Like, I feel like it's the rubric, the template for how to create a legitimate looking zombie. That's not to knock anybody else that's in the world, but The Beyond to me is great on so many levels because the music, if you've never watched an Italian horror movie, one of the things they're really good with is their music. I mentioned this in my tribute to Ruggiero Deodato when he passed, and talk about Cannibal Holocaust, but it's a staple across all of Italian cinema, and it was used to the best degree here in this movie. Now, I will tell you, I will warn you, if you haven't seen it and you've seen it for the first time in 2023 or beyond, if you're not a huge like diehard horror fan, it might be a little dated to you, it might be a little cheesy to you, but if you can get past that and see the legitimately creepy scenes, and if you're a blood fan, oh man, this is the movie for you. The blood looks a little, again, cheesy by today's standards, but it is one of the best movies and a movie I can watch all day, every day. There was a span where, like, if I was cleaning my house I was probably watching this movie like as I'm just like sweeping or whatever. So this is one of my favorites. The third favorite of mine that I'm covering for this list. You guys have heard me talk about it before. I already have a review on it. Session 9. I implore you to watch this movie. I personally think so. It's in the same vein of The Shining. I think it's better. And I know to some horror fans that's blasphemy. To some horror fans, you cannot believe I just said that. But that's how I feel, because as good as The Shining was, it's a little drawn out personally for my taste. Session 9, same type concept in a sense, but a little faster paced. And the ending, the last 7 to 10 minutes of the movie is absolutely terrifying. And it's one of those movies that the more you watch it, the more terrifying it gets, because you start to piece things together. I'm not going to say anything more if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it and you go in the comments, keep it spoiler free. I can talk about this movie all day long. I mean, the characters in it, the guys cleaning the Danvers about hospital, the tape that they found to listen to the voice on the tapes, the setting. I mean, everything. It's one of the top to bottom best put together horror movies that I've ever watched, and one of my favorites. All right, next on my list, Halloween, 1978. This is the movie that literally made me want to be scared. Like the very first movie I ever saw that got me into horror was Child's Play 2, the scene where Chucky was beating the teacher to death. That's the first thing I ever saw, horror related. And then I saw the end of Halloween 1, from the moment that Jamie Lee pulled the needle out of the knitting pin. From that point, for the rest of the movie, I saw that. After I saw that movie, and after I saw Dr. Loomis look down and see Michael Myers gone, and just hear the breathing, I legitimately thought he was in my backyard. I couldn't go to sleep that night. And it was the most terrified and happy I was. And for some reason, I keep coming, and because of that, I am now a horror fan to the point where I want to make a YouTube channel about it. Halloween is the greatest slasher movie in my book. It is. I don't want to say it's the scariest, because I'm going to cover one that I think is scarier, but it's the greatest formula for making an amazing slasher. Michael Myers is utterly terrifying and saying nothing at all. And what we need to remember, and what I keep harping on is the impact Michael Myers had. Because coming in the late 70s, all the 80s was, had Jason Voorhees and a bunch of other maskless or silent killers that would not have been able to exist if it wasn't for the success of Michael Myers and Halloween. Now, there's another one I'll cover that had a lot to do with it. By no means am I saying, but the success of Halloween kind of put it over the edge. So the setting again, Dr. Loomis. If it wasn't for Dr. Loomis, I don't think it would have worked. I think if you had another character coming after Michael Myers, I don't think it would have worked. Because if you really think about that movie, the entirety of the movie until the end is Dr. Loomis telling people he's coming. And just the fear, the trepidation in his voice as he tells everyone and tries to warn everybody is intense, because he knows that once this individual gets to where he's going, it's not going to be good. And the entire first half of the movie was carried on by him and what he said, and then just a couple of glimpses of Michael Myers throughout. Like, that's a perfect way to make a legitimate slasher movie. And for some reason, people don't see, you don't really see that done that well. You don't really see a great slasher. The formula is right there, but it doesn't seem to be done in the way that it can be. I don't know if people want to do a different formula or what, but This is the blueprint for a great slasher, one of my favorite horror movies. And I've been blessed and privileged enough to meet all the Michael Myers, Danielle Harris, Tamara Glenn, who else? I know I'm forgetting somebody. I love Halloween, the entire series. I was a little bit disappointed it ends, but we're not going to talk about that. Halloween 1978, one of my favorite movies of all time. Next on my list for one of my favorite movies of all time, The Strangers. I just finished saying how I don't think Halloween's the scariest slasher ever made. For me, for my money, The Strangers is the scariest slasher movie I've ever seen. The isolation. First of all, let's rewind. The main character proposed to his wife, his girlfriend, and she said no. And on top of that, they're on the way to this getaway that he set for them, supposing to be a celebration of their engagement. That's number one. Number two, they've got to deal with that, and then they have these masked individuals stalking them. For the same reasons, with the exception of Samuel Loomis, the things that made The Strangers work was what Halloween set the blueprint on, like I said. Some of the scenes where the main character had no idea that the villain was right behind them, that's how you create suspense. That's how you create tension. And this movie had you on edge. And then when you find out the motive behind why they're doing what they're doing, it made it even more terrifying. This movie, if a person came to me to say, hey, I never watched a horror movie in my life, where should I start? The Strangers would be one of the ones I would show them first. I can't say enough good things about this. That is one of my favorite horror movies, The Stranger. Next on my list, I told you guys I would talk about it because it came before Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So when I think of if someone was to tell me that what's the definition of horror, to me it's that movie. If you just think of the dinner scene alone with Sally at the table and all the screaming, and they were teasing her with the screaming, and what they were eating, and like just the whole scene just made you feel uncomfortable. It made you feel like you're in a nightmare, and you wanted someone to help her, but no one would help her. And you felt as a viewer that you're feeling her nightmare, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing she can do about it. It's one of the most helpless scenes in horror. But leading up to that, the introduction, the very first scene of Leatherface is absolutely iconic. Just the door slam, it has been recreated in so many horror movies. Hills Have Eyes 2, the remake Hills Have Eyes 2 did it. Of course, they did it in the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is off the top of my head. There are a few others that recreated that iconic door slam. The other thing that made it so terrifying was everyone that you thought was there to help at some point was all part of it, and all part of the nightmare, and were the villains of the story. You just couldn't get away. There was nowhere to turn. It's just a helpless feeling movie, and of all the things you don't want to be in, like all the wrong turns you could have taken, like that one. I mean, even from the beginning when the hitchhiker is in the car, I mean, the whole thing it's just tense, and it just makes you feel like you are taking this journey with them, and it's absolutely terrifying. So one of my favorite horror movies, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. Next on my list, I have got to go old school again. Something about, I mean, if you've seen the trend, I love the older movies because it took more time to have the elements of horror in them compared to some of the ones that are a little bit faster and just trying to go for jump scares. The next one on my list, Burnt Offerings. All right, this stars Karen Black. Karen Black is a very underrated scream queen. She was also in the Trilogy of Terror with the Zuni doll. Everyone knows that one. So Burnt Offerings is one that goes under the radar heavily. Burgess Meredith is in this one. Karen Black, as I stated. The cast is pretty strong in this movie. And what this is a different type of haunted house movie. It's almost the house itself is actually the slasher, which is strange. It's unique and never been done. But the acting in this movie, there's also a recurring scene/scenario with this Undertaker that has this creepy smile. And I mean, I don't want to go too much into this. This is one of the creepiest horror movies that you'll ever see. And just kind of similar to Session 9, the ending of this movie is very jarring, very intense, and you might not see this one coming. Burnt Offerings, if you haven't seen that, you've got to see that movie. Next on my list, The Hills Have Eyes, 1977. Just a fun film. And I know it sounds crazy with the subject matter, but it's fun. The villains have a personality to them that's not there in the remake. Now, the remake is more in-your-face violence. There's violence in this one, but you also have a mix of family and a mix of character with the villains in this one that you don't have in the remake. It's another one that I would turn on anytime and watch it from start to finish if I see it. The setting, kind of similar to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The setting is very open and very it's very transparent. It makes you know that you're in the midst of something you can't get out of. And the filming style, this was real in the sense that they had long hours filming this movie in the middle of the desert, and the exhaustion from these people was legitimate, and you could feel it. It translates to the acting on screen. One of the best horror movies I've ever seen. This is one of my favorites, The Hills Have Eyes, 1977, I believe. Next on my list, Hellraiser 1. So, I'm a huge Pinhead fan. I saw Hellraiser 2 before I saw Hellraiser 1. Okay? Pinhead is not the scariest character in this movie. None of the Cenobites are. The most terrifying character in this movie is Julia. Julia is terrifying in every way possible and pure evil. Like, I'm not going to go into what she's done. I'm sure you've seen it by now. If you haven't, well, I'll go into what she's done. Slight spoilers here. So Julia was having an affair with her husband's brother, who gets taken by the Cenobites when he opens a box. He's brought back as a skeleton. So she kills people to bring him back to life as a whole person. Ends up killing her husband to bring him back to life. Like, that's just, how evil is that? How evil is all of everything I just told you? Like, you don't get much more evil than that. And then on top of that, you have Pinhead. So very similar to what I said about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is the epitome of what horror is. You have purely evil individuals in this movie, and then you have this, whatever he is, with pins in his head, and all of his crew. The woman with the hole in her neck. You have the big giant upside down dinosaur looking thing. I mean, it's just very. You can't escape this either. Once you open the box, you know you messed up. One of my favorite horror movies ever, Hellraiser. The time has come. We're coming to the end of my list. Last on my list, I had to give two because you can't have them one without the other. Demons 1 and 2. Oh my gosh. Demons 1 and 2 they're Italian horror movies. The theme, so you've got the music. The music in there is amazing. The demons are absolutely terrifying. I feel like Demons 1 and 2 is like what the Evil Dead was trying to do over in America in a similar way. I know it had to have heavy influence on it. But if you haven't seen Demons 1 and 2, just because I mentioned Evil Dead, it's worth a watch. I guarantee you they got their influence from there. Now, one of the things that I love about the movie is once the mania starts, it is balls to the wall, nonstop. And it's so much fun. These people go to a private screening for a new movie. What's happening on screen ends up happening also in the theater. The theater gets locked up. No one can get out, and the demons just go crazy. It is, and you've got Tony the Pimp, who's one of the best characters in any horror movie. It's just so much fun, but yet terrifying too. If you've not seen Demons 1 and 2, you gotta see them. If you have anything on my list, if you've seen it, I want to know in the comments. Obviously, keep it spoiler free for those that haven't seen them. But this is my list, guys. These are 10 of my absolute favorite horror movies. And thanks again to Young Anime Doctor for suggesting this. These are the suggestions and the kind of list that get me excited and maybe remember why I do this. And again, I apologize for my time away. I just wanted to make sure that I'm bringing you guys the best version of myself, and I felt like some of my videos weren't the way that I would have liked them to be. So I needed to take some time to kind of step back. But I'm back now, guys. I appreciate you guys waiting and being patient. If you're new here, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more content along the way. Thanks again. I'll see you guys next time.